I'm Bad Brad Berkwitt from America,
I'm Gord Deppe from Canada.
and we welcome you to our show, Last Stop, the Twilight Zone show. Folks, is that not the coolest guitar riff ever?
One of the best TV show themes ever, too, I think.
All right, folks, we're back for another episode of Last Stop, the Twilight Zone show. Now, before we get into doing the show today, we had a funny situation arise. And since we're both, we both have a good sense of humor, we can laugh about this. So I wasn't sure if Gord watched the wrong show or if I watched the wrong show. So Gord's like, no, it's Night of the Meek, which was with Art Carney, where he played Santa Claus. And I said, no, it's the show that we're actually going to do. And he jumped up, and behind him, you could see where he's got his TV or he's got a stand. He went and pulled out his DVD set. He actually watched the right episode number, but he watched it from season 2, and we're still in season 1. So what we're going to do is I'm pretty much going to do the synopsis and the trivia and all that stuff, but Gord will still chime in with whatever he wants to say off the top of his head. But as we always do, we always start out with kind of what's going on. Last week, we were talking about COVID, which we know is still going on. But have they raised the number of people? It went from 5 to 10 now, finally?
Not yet. Not yet, no. But I tell you, it's got to be affecting me. I feel terrible about messing this up. Like my sense of time is all over the place, right? 5 people, 10 people, episode 1, episode 2. I'm just like,
it's all these numbers. I can't take these numbers.
Oh. And we got like a serious heat wave here too, so I've like a heat stroke too. So I got everything.
And he gardens. Now, I'm gonna have to send the Canadian version of TMZ up there and say the Spoons lead singer is out gardening. He's gonna have a little hat on, white stuff on his nose.
Nah.
little short shorts.
Yeah, I'm like a beekeeper, right? I've got the hat.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? We're gonna jump into it. I'll do the synopsis and the trivia, and Gord will chime in with anything he wants to.
So, what's the proper show I should have watched?
Okay, so we're still on season 1, episode 11, and it's called "And When the Sky Opened." That aired December 11th, 1959. I always say Gord's favorite year, the year that he was born. Okay, it starred Rod Taylor, Jim Hutton, and Charles Aidman. Teleplay by Rod Serling, based on a short story by Richard Matheson, directed by Douglas Hayes. So the synopsis of it is 3 men go into space and they crash land in the desert, and they're in a hospital. They're on an army barracks, or not army, military installation, and they're in a hospital. And the twist is there's 2 of them. Now the main character is Rod Taylor. Now I didn't write down the names and all of that, but he plays a colonel. And he knows that there were 3 people that went in a spaceship and crash landed, but there's only 2. So he's explaining to this other guy who's the junior officer on the trip that there was 3 people. And he's like, no, there wasn't. There was only 2. And he's like, no, look at the newspaper. All of a sudden, the newspaper shows there was only 2, but he knows there was 3. And then he goes in and he explains where the other colonel, who was actually the senior officer on the trip, and then they have a flashback. They go to a bar, and because they get released from the hospital, the one guy stays in because he's got a broken leg. That's Jim Hutton, the actor. And he's in the bar, and all of a sudden, the other colonel that Rod Taylor is sitting next to looks in the mirror, but you don't see anything where you don't see him, a reflection, but he's like, something's not right. I'm not supposed to be here. And he drops his glass of beer because the bartender buys him a beer because it's real famous. It's almost like the Apollo landing, so they're very famous. He says, I'm going to make a phone call. So he goes in a phone booth and he calls his family. And he's like pale, and he calls Rod Taylor's character, the other lieutenant colonel. He says, "Come here." He said, "I just called home and my mother didn't know who I was. She said, I don't exist. And my father said, I don't exist." And Rod Taylor is like, what? So he goes back to the bar and it cuts to a scene. This guy disappears. So he's explaining to the other astronaut or space traveler, whatever they're called in this, that this isn't right. And he's like, no. Here's the thing. He's like, no, there was only two. There was only two of us that landed. This is all in your mind. So as the episode progresses, all of a sudden, Rod Taylor, the star, starts going through the same symptoms as the guy that disappeared. He's like, I don't feel right. I don't belong here. And all of a sudden, he disappears. So now there's only one guy, which is Jim Hutton. And he's the one that broke his leg. He's in the hospital bed. The other two were discharged. So he runs out the hospital room and he's screaming because Taylor runs out. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. And the nurse comes. He says, what are you doing? Get back in bed. You're not supposed to be out of bed. He's like, well, he looks at the newspaper and now it's only one astronaut.
One astronaut returns.
Returns. Do you remember this episode by chance?
I do remember, yeah.
And so only one returns. Then all of a sudden, the doctor and the nurse show back up and they open up the room and none of them are here anymore. And they say, yeah, we could use this room. We could probably fit 3 beds in there for TB, tuberculosis patients. Nobody's there. And then it cuts to the end, to the hangar where the crashed spaceship that they were in was, and that's not there anymore. And Rod Serling does the voiceover about, what happened and, all of that. So that's pretty much a synopsis of that particular episode.
Yeah, I do remember that one well because it was another one of, I'd say, science fiction type of things. And I don't know if it was about time travel, but something caused their history to be erased a little bit at a time, right? A little bit more.
Right, yeah, and I didn't see really what it was, but
I thought maybe at one point it was aliens, like they saw something they shouldn't have, so they could have another.
Yeah, I've seen it before, but I was thinking somehow in my mind that it was going to be one of these things that they didn't want them, they were covering up, one of those things, but it wasn't. But it was a different. You would have liked. I'll get to my rating in a minute. You would have liked it more than me from the sci-fi, even though I love sci-fi. Yeah. But I'll get to my rating in a second. But the trivia and facts are: Rod Taylor, and I know you know this one, big star at one time. He was in The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. I know you saw that before. Tippi Hedren, Tippi Hedren, if you don't know, folks, that is actually Melanie Griffith's mother, the famous actress.
That's right.
That was married to Don Johnson of Miami Vice fame twice.
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, twice she married him. Jim Hutton, who was the astronaut that disappears at the end, who broke his leg and was in a hospital bed, he is the father of the Oscar-winning actor Timothy Hutton, who won an Oscar for the 1980 movie Ordinary People with Robert Redford. He was in that. And another movie that I really, really loved from 1990, Timothy Hutton was in, was called Q&A. Nick Nolte was a star. So Jim Hutton was in that. He died very young at the age of 45, and he died of liver cancer. He was in another 70s TV show that you may know from 1975 to 1976 called the Ellery Queen Mysteries. Do you remember that show at all?
I do remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I know the name. Yeah.
Okay, he was in that. He was in it. Now, I never saw that, but I saw that in the IMDb stuff. The last astronaut, which was the first one to disappear, the colonel, the senior officer, was Charles Aidman, who was in another Twilight Zone episode called Little Girl Lost. Do you remember that one?
Was that kind of like the Poltergeist type of story where he disappears in the wall of the house?
Yep. He was the father in that. He was the father in that. As well, interesting Twilight Zone fact, he was the narrator for another remake of the Twilight Zone show that aired from 1985 to 1989. But he was only the narrator from 85 to 87. I don't honestly remember that particular one. So that's my trivia and facts on that particular episode.
Well, there's 2 interesting things that come to mind because obviously I didn't watch the right episode, but I watched a science fiction movie just like 2 nights ago which made me think of this right away. And I wonder, again, like writers, and when they're young, they probably saw this and they think about it. Did you see the movie, the sci-fi movie with George Clooney called Solaris?
Yeah, I didn't like it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's got sort of the same kind of weird vibe where he goes to a space station where people are disappearing and acting strange. And they're near this planet. And again, that's why I thought of aliens. Maybe there's some kind of higher life form that is slowly taking them over and bringing back their past, and then slowly erasing them and playing with time. And yeah, it's you know,
that's
my influence.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I didn't care for the movie, but that's a good comparison because it was very similar to that. And talking about aliens, a side note, I don't know if you've been watching American news, but you know, we're dealing with now a lot of videos of it's been going on for years, but now it's like the government has been really exposed because Chris Cuomo on CNN has been having a lot of guests with a lot of footage, military people talking about, we saw this spaceship and all that. I'm waiting for them to come down and you know, but if they...
Well, I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard on something on the radio, it wasn't some tabloid, it was on the radio, that the American government is going to release some information. I think it was June 27th. They had a date.
Okay.
You know, because some secret files that I think might have been Trump or something forced to be opened up or something. Nothing, I can't imagine being earth-shattering news, but maybe more, you know, about sightings of unexplained things that are actually really, you know, legit. They aren't just UFOs from, you know.
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
B-movies.
If an alien lands, he looks like Richard Keel from How to Serve Man, and he's got a big book, I ain't getting on that ship.
No.
I'll be
but here's a good question, because that's one of my fears. You know, I don't really want to have aliens. I think it would I think it'd be such a shock to the system for the world that we couldn't handle it. I don't think general population, we just be in like turmoil. And I don't know if we could take another race. And they're not going to look pretty, like, you know, from like a Star Trek or something. There's probably going to be some life form that we can't even imagine, you know, that could be.
Well, I could see you doing a Richard Dreyfuss thing from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, walking hand in hand. I'll go with you. I'm
going the other way. No, I don't want to go
the other way.
I'm going
Not
the other way.
That's up your alley. What do you mean you're going the other way?
Yeah, I'm going to check for my implant. I don't know.
What you would call, you know, my favorite thing about sci-fi. My particular, and I'll show you my rating here in a minute, folks. My particular favorite sci-fi movie of all time is in 1951. 51, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, yeah.
With Michael Rennie. Of course, they had to remake it with Keanu Reeves, which.
Yeah.
But the original one, I loved it. He had the robot behind him and all of that, and you know, of course, he was trying to help Earth out, and being how we are, we had to ruin it. But that's my favorite sci-fi one.
Well, that's the great thing about the Twilight Zone. He covers all of the flavors. Mm-hmm. Right? He scratches every itch. You know, he gets the sci-fi in there, then he gets human interest stories, then he gets something about wartime. He gets things about everything, the business world, about depression, about.
Well, he talks about racism. He talks about discrimination.
He covers everything.
Yeah, he's brilliant. All right, folks. I think had Gord seen this episode, even though he remembers it, he probably would have been higher than me in this one. This is probably my lowest rating so far, and I gave it a 4. Not really horrible, but I didn't really care for it. I liked it more when I was younger. The story was kind of I don't think it really explained what really happened, but if you saw the episode, folks, and you know you have more of a definitive answer on what really happened, let me know, because I really didn't catch it. And maybe it's because my house is in the house zone. My mind is in the house zone of moving out of this house, because we're living in the Twilight Zone over here, and we're trying to move to like Gord said, with the white picket fences and the nice shrubbery, the big trees, and the lake. Actually, everybody knows, if they really know Rod Serling, he lived on the lake. You know, he had that house on the lake.
That's right. Well, what was the Twilight Zone episode where everybody lives in a street and they're all worried about aliens coming? Remember that?
Yes. Yep.
Aliens land on something street. I forget the name.
The Martians.
Yeah, that's right.
Maple
Street. Our picture. Yeah, that's our picture you live in.
Oh, I love that. I love that one. That's
you gonna have a bunker? You gonna have a bunker in your place too?
You know what? I may.
Anyway, so I would have. I mean, I didn't obviously watch this, but I do remember, and I probably would have given it around a 6, maybe something like that. I did find it interesting because I do like sci-fi, and at the time it was a pretty radical idea about playing with time and the
Yeah.
existence of people. And yeah, it was, yeah, I would have liked it.
Well, you know what I
Yeah.
will say, complimentary of it. Uh, one thing, and I'm not. There's some episodes that I didn't really like at all. This one, I didn't dislike it. Wasn't one of my favorites. But the one thing I will say, and you and I've talked about this before, Gord, he always, for the most part, picked really good actors, or whoever did the what's the word? Not scripting. I forget. I acted. I can't.
Well, the casting.
Casting. That's the word. Can't believe I couldn't think of that. I need to get back in acting.
Like fishing.
Yeah,
Casting.
there you go. Casting. Right. The acting was great in it. They always, even when they were kind of over the top, the acting was good, because I'm gonna go back to when you talked about the 16 millimeter shrine, and you talked about Ida Lupino and Martin Balsam, how some of those scenes were kind of over the top. You remember, that's where she goes back. She's seeing herself on the screen, but it was good. Even, you have what we call in the 50s, like the B movies, like the Creature from the Black Lagoon, or some of those Michael Landon, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, those type of things. And some of that's over the top, The Blob. Even though I love those movies, don't get me wrong, they're timeless. But some of it's over the top. But the casting in the episodes of the Twilight Zone, they always leave a great memory with me, because they were just fabulous actors. And you talked about this, I think, on the last episode last week, that so many of these stars in these shows went on to some major successes in Hollywood.
In some cases, this was the first time you saw them on screen. Here, since I didn't watch it, I didn't prepare any trivia. I just thought of a really interesting little thread, though. You mentioned Rod Taylor, who was in also the movie The Time Machine.
Yes, remember? 1960.
And remember, we mentioned that episode when we did, was it All the Time in the World? With the Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith, yep. Enough Time at Last.
Last November, we found out that the set of when after the apocalypse and the world is blown up, and there is the steps to the library. This looks like a temple. They use that in the Time Machine as, I think, the Eloi Palace. The Elois were the sort of the weak people, and then the Morlocks, what are they called? They came up and ate them or something. So, anyways, there's this little connection there. They're all, like I say, there's a certain world of Rod Serling characters and people that I keep imagining in my dreams, that they have cocktail parties and hang out and converse and tell stories. So they're all part of that world.
I'm surprised that you didn't do, well, even though I think Nova Heart has a Twilight, the video has a Twilight Zone kind of feel to it. I'm surprised. Well, let me ask you this. If you were to do another video and you could have creative input into it, which I'm sure that you do, I mean, it's your music, but would you do a Twilight Zone-ish episode, video if you could?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I like, especially black and white is always great it's a rock and roll format, and it looks kind of cool. Yeah, that'd be very interesting. What would be a good episode to sort of use, like the sets? I like the carnival stuff, like in Walking Distance. That sort of on an angle carnival scenes.
It would probably. I would think it would have to revolve around with your lyrics. I mean, that's what it's going to drive the video.
Life is a carnival, right?
I could definitely see. Definitely see you doing that. That would be really cool. Did when you did the video for Nova Heart, did you have anything in mind with the Twilight Zone?
No, I don't think we had nothing. That was our first video, so it was all the directors. Okay. Later on, we got more involved. Yeah, but people should watch it though, because it is kind of talking about science fiction. Scenes out of it look like from Alien or something. With the egg and the lights, the pyramids.
Well, the first and last time could be an episode of Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Because you're in that. Which, by the way, I was going to ask you, that haunted house that you're coming up the stairs with the thing to test like ghosts or whatever. What is whose house is that?
That's an actual haunted house.
Oh, no kidding.
The director, Peter Sacco, who did our video, he used to have a show called Paranormal Profilers, and they would go into haunted houses. They got a real ghost show, ghost hunter show. And that was one of the places he went to several times, that had sightings and disturbances, whatever. So it was an actual place. It was near Niagara Falls. Okay.
And I got to tell you, and the name of the song, I don't know why I want to say Old Emotions, but what was the video that I watched with the guy with the nose, that we talked
Tell No Lies.
Yeah, Tell No Lies. Folks, go there and check out Tell No Lies, but find the original one when they're in the plane is spinning around and they're in the airport and they got all the characters.
Yeah.
It's so, I love it because it's
Oh,
my
yeah,
generation.
it's totally it's like a circus, that one.
It's
Yeah.
totally, but it's so 80s. I love it. I mean, it so goes back to that era. I love it. So Tell No Lies. Check out his video. So we talked last week that about the CD coming out, which has come out. Anything else going on? Any gigs coming up or anything?
Not much. No, we have a private thing, I think August the 7th. That's the next Spoon show. There's some more Flock of Seagull shows. I will hopefully join them in July. You know,
Okay.
things are, I'm just waiting for the borders to open up a bit more here.
Right.
And there's real pressure from America to do that, even more so than the other way around because of, you know, trade and
right.
trucks going across, and they make, you know, we got to make it easy. Yeah, so the numbers are coming down. People are getting double vaccinated finally. So all of a sudden we're ramping up.
Good.
So yeah, every week is a better picture. So yeah, I think, you know.
Okay, I was supposed to tell you, I spoke to Johnny Cristo for about 2 hours on Zoom the other day, who's the bassist and co-songwriter, I'll get it out, in the Escape Club with Trevor Steele, and he sends his regards. And,
Very nice.
He's looking forward to, you know, getting back out there too, like the rest of the guys doing his
Absolutely.
His thing. He's over there in England. So, all right, folks. Next week, I'm going to email Gord the thing. You know, he's a rock star guy. You know, it is.
Yeah.
So, but I tell you what, I will say this. I won't say what my rating would be, but the episode that he watched, I liked a lot better than.
No, it's a great episode.
Oh my God, with Art Carney.
One of my favorites.
That's a tearjerker. That's a tearjerker. Great episode. But we'll get that in season 2. I think we have maybe 3 or 4 tops, 5 the most of this season left to do for season 1. So, all right, folks, on that note, let me see. Next week, programming note. Make sure that you hit the channel and the button, whatever corner, and subscribe. Leave your comments below. Next week, actually, we won't be shooting the show because I am going to be moving. So I'll let you know that now. Don't worry about next Saturday because I'm going to be in the midst. We close Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, forget about it. I'm going to be moving like there's no tomorrow. And then Wednesday, we fly to Florida for the Hall of Fame. So, but we will be back. For the people that said, hey, what happened? I'm moving. We didn't stop the show. We got a ton of episodes to do. And once I'm set up at the new house, we're going to start bringing guests on, which I look forward to because I've never done anything where there's 3 people in the Zoom. You have, but I haven't done it yet. And we got some big names that want to come on because they love the Twilight Zone. So that's going to be really cool.
Excellent.
All right. So on that note, as we always do, I'll say goodbye from America.
Bye from Canada.
Until next time.